All right, folks, let's get right to it. What you're looking at is a 2-inch thick cut New York strip steak. And what you see me doing is removing all of the unnecessary fat. And the reason why it's unnecessary is because it does not render, meaning over the scorching hot fire, it will stay. And you don't want that when making kebabs. So when you're making kebabs, especially on the grill, you want every piece to be enjoyable. So with that being said, I take the approach of trimming very, very, very meticulously so that it leaves me with a perfect rectangular shape that allows me to split the steak right down the middle. That leaves me with 2 strips, as you're going to see in just a second. And when you have the 2 strips, it ensures that you have perfectly cut 1-inch pieces so that they go onto the skewer perfectly, evenly, and everything cooks beautifully. So what you're going to see me do is cut them into 1-inch pieces. Now, they don't have to be exactly 1 inch, but you don't want them smaller than an inch. You know, if you go a little bit larger or a little bit under, that's okay, but you don't want them ridiculously small, and you don't want them in huge chunks because, again, these are kebabs where they're meant to be eaten in bite-sized pieces, enjoyable pieces. So after you got them all queued up, it's time to skewer them. And as you can see, I'm using the one and only original 3-way skewer by GrillingSavant. And it's a very simple process from here. You are going to thread your meat onto each of the tines. And on the 3-way, each tine is about 9 inches long. So it gives you an idea of how large the 3-way is and how much meat it can fit. This was a pretty large ribeye steak, so it's a lot of food, if you ask me. It could feed at least 3 people, whereas every person has a tine of their own to eat and enjoy, especially if you have other sides. What I did was take my meat pounder and use the flat side just to give it not a rough pounding, not a vigorous one, but enough to where it flattens just a little bit, just to ensure that even, beautiful cut or beautiful char on every piece. Now it's time to season and dress it. Take some olive oil, and you want to drizzle on both sides. The meat's not going anywhere once it's on the 3-way, so you can twist and turn, flip and flop, and the meat's going to stay in place. Drizzle the oil onto both sides and then rub it in. You want to make sure that every piece has oil on it because you want every bit of seasoning to adhere to the meat so that you get flavor in every bite. So what I'm doing is I take the simple approach. I picked up this Weber Steak and Chop from, where did I get it? Sam's Club. And I tell you what, folks, it's some of the best. I gotta give it to Weber. It is so delicious. I went pretty liberal on this because, again, you are dealing with a large piece of meat, even though it's cut up into cubes. So it can take it. It's only on the outside. So when you sprinkle or when you dash the seasoning over it, don't be afraid to go, a little bit liberal, because you want this to be flavorful, especially if you're going to have other sides with it. Once it's all seasoned, it's time to get it wrapped. And you want to leave it in the refrigerator. Put it in the refrigerator for a couple of hours. I left it in the refrigerator for a couple of hours because I had some things to do. But if you just leave it in the refrigerator for an hour, it's ready to go after you set it out and it gets up to room temperature. But I had a couple of things to do in the meantime, which is perfectly okay. A couple hours is fine, but it was time to kiss the grill. And after I removed it from the refrigerator, look at that. Now, when I took it to the grill, it was room temperature. So I want to make sure you keep that in mind. It was room temperature. And when I did place it onto the grill, I gave it a quick pat, as you saw there, just to make sure it pressed up against those grates and got those grill marks, as you can see here. This was the first flip after about 3 minutes on that one side. And then I just started turning every other minute and a half until I got it to a nice medium. And then once I got it to a medium, I removed it. That piece on the top right is a little bit charred because the fire was hotter up there, but nonetheless, it was still medium. I brought it in after I got it to the medium. As you can see, a little red is on the corner piece there, which is cooked perfectly. And I brought it onto the original 3-way skewer racks. And then I used the brand new product from GrillingSavant, our sizzle plate. That's gonna, you'll see, it's gonna just take this kebab over the top. I took some clarified butter, basically ghee, and I put it in my hot plate. After heating the hot plate in the oven at 450 degrees, so it was nice and hot. And watch this. Next level. Now, these sizzle plates, the GrillingSavant sizzle plates, will be available coming spring 2022. But I got one now, of course. Of course I had to try it out first. But a little sprinkle of oregano, or some people like to say oregano, and I was in business. Look at this. Folks, try this recipe out. It's simple, it's quick, it's delicious, easy to do, and anybody who eats steak will absolutely love it. Peace.